When it comes to burning fat efficiently, the first thing most people overlook is the critical role of insulin. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas, and its primary job is to regulate blood sugar or glucose in the bloodstream. Every time we eat carbohydrates, insulin levels rise to shuttle glucose into the cells for energy or store it for later use. But insulin does more than just manage blood sugar. It is the body's master fat storage hormone. If insulin remains elevated for long periods, your body is constantly in storage mode, preventing fat from being broken down and used as fuel. Most conventional diets fail because they focus solely on calories in versus calories out without understanding how insulin truly affects fat metabolism. You could eat the same number of calories in two different ways and have completely different results depending on how your insulin responds. Most people think that eating fewer calories is the only way to burn fat, but this isn't entirely accurate. Fat loss is heavily influenced by hormonal signals, and insulin is at the center of this process. When insulin levels spike, fat breakdown slows down and fat storage accelerates. That's why consuming large amounts of carbohydrates, especially refined carbs like bread, pastries, and sugary drinks, often leads to fat gain despite what your calorie count says. The body prioritizes storing that excess energy because insulin tells it this is fuel, store it for later. On the other hand, when insulin is low, your body naturally shifts into fat burning mode. That's why periods of low insulin, whether through fasting or strategic carb timing, are so powerful for fat loss. The key trick here is not to eliminate carbs completely, but to use them strategically to manipulate insulin in a way that encourages fat burning rather than fat storage. By carefully timing carbohydrate intake, you can create short insulin spikes followed by periods of low insulin, which forces your body to burn stored fat. This approach is much more sustainable than extreme fasting or calorie restriction because it works with your body's natural hormonal rhythms instead of against them. People often struggle with fasting for 48 hours because prolonged deprivation slows metabolism, reduces thyroid function, and can increase hunger hormones like ghrelin. This carb trick, however, achieves similar or even superior fat-burning results without the negative side effects of extended fasting. It's also important to recognize that not all carbs are created equal. Complex fiber-rich carbohydrates like vegetables, sweet potatoes, and certain fruits provide glucose in a slow, steady stream, resulting in smaller insulin spikes. Refined carbohydrates, on the other hand, cause rapid insulin surges and fat storage. By focusing on high-quality carbs and pairing them with protein and healthy fats, you stabilize blood sugar, reduce cravings, and create an environment in which fat is more readily burned. The goal isn't to deprive yourself, it's to outsmart your hormones and use insulin as a tool rather than a barrier. Another important consideration is timing. Insulin responds differently depending on your activity level and time of day. For example, consuming carbs around a workout provides immediate fuel for muscles and triggers a short-term insulin rise, but afterwards, insulin levels drop and fat burning accelerates. Eating the same carbs at night when your activity level is low results in more fat storage because your body isn't using that energy. This is why many people see better fat loss results by adjusting not just what they eat, but when they eat it. Timing is a form of hormonal optimization. It's not just about what goes into your mouth, but how your body responds hormonally. Finally, understanding insulin gives insight into why many miracle diets fail. Simply cutting calories without addressing insulin often leads to temporary results. Once normal eating resumes, insulin spikes and fat storage quickly return. By using this carb trick, you create a sustainable, hormonally intelligent approach that encourages fat breakdown consistently. You're not fighting your body, you're guiding it into its natural fat-burning state. In summary, controlling insulin is the cornerstone of effective fat loss. Rather than focusing purely on calories or extreme fasting, strategically using carbs to manipulate insulin allows your body to burn fat efficiently. This approach provides energy, preserves muscle, and supports long-term metabolic health while achieving fat loss results that fasting alone often cannot match. Understanding insulin is not just a concept, it's the key to unlocking your body's potential for fat burning in a smart, sustainable way. Carb cycling is one of the most powerful tools for fat loss, yet most people overlook it because they are stuck in the mindset that all carbs are bad. The truth is, carbohydrates are not inherently fattening. It's the timing, type, and combination of carbs with other macronutrients that determine whether they support fat loss or promote fat storage. Carb cycling is the deliberate practice of alternating high carb and low carb days to manipulate metabolism and hormones in a way that encourages fat burning while preserving lean muscle. This method works far better than traditional fasting for many people because it provides energy and hormonal balance rather than triggering the metabolic slowdown that extended fasting can cause. On a high carb day, the goal is not to overeat, but to strategically consume carbs to refill glycogen stores in the muscles and liver, which is critical for both energy and metabolism. When glycogen stores are replenished, the hormone leptin increases. Leptin is often called the fat-burning hormone because it signals the body that energy is abundant and that metabolism can accelerate. Without adequate leptin, the body tends to conserve calories, slow down metabolism, and resist fat loss. By incorporating high carb days strategically, you are essentially sending a signal to your body that it can safely burn fat without going into conservation mode. On low carb days, your body shifts into fat burning mode. With glycogen stores partially depleted, insulin levels remain low, and the body turns to stored fat for fuel. This alternating pattern creates a metabolic environment that maximizes fat loss. The key here is that carb cycling works with your hormones rather than against them. Most diets that eliminate carbs entirely for extended periods tend to suppress metabolism, reduce thyroid hormone activity, and make long-term fat loss difficult. Carb cycling avoids these pitfalls by providing the body with the nutrients it needs at the right times while still maintaining periods of low insulin that favor fat breakdown. Timing and food selection are crucial for carb cycling to be effective. High carb days should focus on nutrient-dense carbohydrates such as sweet potatoes, yams, fruits, and vegetables rather than processed foods. Pairing these carbs with protein ensures that blood sugar remains stable, reducing the risk of fat storage. Low carb days should prioritize leafy greens, fibrous vegetables, and moderate amounts of protein and fat. This balance prevents blood sugar spikes while still supporting muscle maintenance and energy. The strategic alternation between these two patterns ensures that fat is being used consistently as a fuel source without triggering hormonal resistance. Carb cycling also has a positive impact on physical performance. On high carb days, the body has adequate glycogen for intense workouts, which promotes muscle preservation and boosts metabolism. This is important because many people lose muscle mass during extended fasting or very low carb diets, which can lower metabolic rate and make fat loss more difficult over time. By integrating high carb days, you maintain energy, protect muscle tissue, and enhance workout performance, all of which contribute to more efficient and sustainable fat loss. Another important aspect is mental sustainability. Low carb diets and prolonged fasting can be mentally taxing, leading to cravings, irritability, and eventual binge eating. Carb cycling provides a psychological advantage because it allows for periodic higher carb meals that satisfy cravings while still supporting fat loss. This approach makes adherence much easier over the long term, which is critical for lasting results. You are training your body hormonally and metabolically, but also training your mind to follow a sustainable plan that doesn't feel like deprivation. Carb cycling is essentially a method of metabolic flexibility. It teaches your body to efficiently switch between using carbs and fats for fuel. This is an important skill because most people are metabolically stuck on glucose, meaning they burn sugar for energy but struggle to burn fat. By alternating high and low carb days, you improve the body's ability to burn fat while still having the energy needed for workouts and daily activity. Over time, this creates a metabolic advantage that can outperform even extended fasting, because fasting alone can reduce thyroid function and lower energy levels. In practice, carb cycling can be customized based on individual goals, activity levels, and metabolism. For example, someone who trains intensely may benefit from more frequent high-carb days around workouts, while someone with a slower metabolism may use fewer high-carb days. The key is strategic planning and consistency, rather than random carb intake or strict avoidance. By understanding how your body responds hormonally and metabolically, you can use carb cycling to create the optimal environment for fat loss, energy, and long-term metabolic health. In summary, carb cycling is not just a diet, it's a strategic tool for fat loss that works by manipulating hormones, preserving muscle, supporting energy levels, and creating metabolic flexibility. High carb days stimulate leptin and metabolism, low carb days encourage fat burning, and the alternation keeps the body from adapting in ways that slow fat loss. This approach can be more effective and sustainable than traditional fasting, providing both physiological and psychological advantages for long-term results. When done correctly, carb cycling turns carbs into a tool for fat loss rather than a roadblock, proving that timing and strategy are far more important than simply eliminating carbs from the diet. Timing your carbohydrate intake is one of the most overlooked yet powerful factors in maximizing fat loss. Many people focus on what they eat, but ignore when they eat it. And this simple shift can make a dramatic difference. The way your body responds to carbs changes depending on activity level, time of day, and hormonal state. By consuming carbs strategically, you can create an environment in which fat is burned more efficiently, energy levels remain high, and cravings are minimized. This is why the carb trick we're discussing can produce results comparable to or even better than a 48-hour fast. Without the extreme hunger or metabolic slowdown that fasting can cause, the human body operates on a circadian rhythm, meaning that hormones fluctuate throughout the day in predictable patterns. Insulin sensitivity, for instance, tends to be higher in the morning and early part of the day. This means your body is better able to handle carbs earlier, using them for energy rather than storing them as fat. Eating a high-carb meal in the morning or around a workout allows insulin to spike temporarily, fueling your muscles and replenishing glycogen stores. Afterwards, as insulin levels drop, the body naturally shifts into a fat-burning mode. On the other hand, consuming carbs late at night or when sedentary tends to result in fat storage because your energy demands are low and insulin remains elevated longer. Timing is therefore crucial. You want to eat carbs when your body can use them most efficiently. Another key aspect is the relationship between carbs and exercise. Carbohydrate intake before or after workouts supports muscle energy and recovery while enhancing fat burning capacity. When you eat carbs before a workout, your muscles are fueled and can perform at higher intensity, which burns more calories overall. Post-workout, insulin temporarily rises, which helps shuttle glucose into muscle cells and replenishes glycogen. This short-term insulin increase does not hinder fat loss. In fact, it supports muscle preservation and increases metabolism, allowing fat to be burned more effectively in the periods between meals. Many people fail to optimize fat loss because they eat carbs randomly or ignore how their activity patterns affect insulin and energy utilization. Carb timing also impacts other hormones that regulate fat metabolism. For example, leptin, a hormone that signals the body to burn calories efficiently, is influenced by carbohydrate intake. Strategic carb consumption at the right times can boost leptin levels, increasing metabolic rate and reducing the body's tendency to conserve fat. Conversely, poor carb timing, such as eating high-carb meals late at night, can blunt leptin production, slow metabolism, and make fat loss significantly harder. This is why simply reducing carbs or fasting without considering timing often produces inconsistent results. The body is not just responding to calories, it is responding to the hormonal environment those calories create. Another important benefit of timed carbohydrate intake is the stabilization of blood sugar. By pairing carbs with protein and healthy fats and consuming them during periods of high insulin sensitivity, blood sugar spikes are minimized. This reduces cravings, prevents energy crashes, and avoids overproduction of insulin that would otherwise block fat burning. Many people overeat or feel fatigued because they consume carbs at the wrong times, creating a roller coaster of insulin and glucose levels. By eating carbs strategically, you maintain stable energy, stay satisfied, and keep your metabolism in a fat-burning state. It's also worth noting that carb timing allows for flexibility and sustainability. Unlike extreme fasting, which can be mentally and physically challenging, timing carbs strategically provides periods of adequate energy and enjoyment. You can eat nutrient-dense carbs at optimal times, fuel your workouts, and still maintain a caloric and hormonal environment that promotes fat loss. This approach is practical for long-term adherence, which is critical because consistent fat loss requires a sustainable strategy rather than short-term deprivation. Ultimately, the key to effective carb timing is planning and consistency. Morning or pre-workout carbs maximize insulin sensitivity and energy use, while low-carb periods during sedentary times encourage fat burning. This method works by taking advantage of natural hormonal rhythms and metabolic responses rather than forcing the body into extreme states of deprivation. It is a smarter, more effective approach to fat loss that aligns with how the body is designed to operate. In summary, timing your carbohydrate intake is a fundamental strategy for fat loss that most people overlook. Eating carbs at optimal times, such as mornings and around workouts, supports energy, boosts metabolism, stabilizes blood sugar, enhances hormone function, and maximizes fat burning. Poor timing, on the other hand, can sabotage even the best diet. This simple but powerful adjustment creates a metabolic environment that can surpass the fat-burning effects of prolonged fasting, providing sustainable results without extreme hunger, fatigue, or muscle loss. Understanding and applying carb timing is not just a tactic, it's a way to work with your body's biology to burn fat more effectively and efficiently than conventional approaches. One of the most critical reasons people fail at fat loss, despite their best efforts, is because they make common mistakes with carbohydrates. Many assume that eating carbs is inherently bad, while others believe that completely cutting them out will automatically trigger fat loss. Neither approach is effective if not applied strategically. The truth is, carbohydrates are not the enemy. It's how, when, and what type of carbs you consume that determines whether they help or hinder your fat-burning goals. Understanding and avoiding these mistakes is essential to fully harness the power of carbs for fat loss. The first major mistake is consuming too many carbs at the wrong times. Many people eat carb-heavy meals late at night when their activity levels are low. In this scenario, insulin spikes and remains elevated, signaling the body to store energy rather than burn it. The calories from these carbs are more likely to be stored as fat, particularly around the abdomen. Even if someone eats clean carbs like rice, bread, or pasta, timing them incorrectly can sabotage fat loss. Optimal carb timing aligns with periods of high energy demand, such as mornings or around exercise. So the glucose from carbs is utilized for fuel and glycogen replenishment rather than stored. The second common mistake is cutting carbs too aggressively or for too long. While it may seem logical that eliminating carbs would force the body to burn fat, prolonged carb restriction can have the opposite effect. Extended low-carb diets can lower thyroid function, reduce metabolism, and even increase stress hormones like cortisol. When metabolism slows, fat burning becomes less efficient, and hunger increases, often leading to cravings and overeating. Additionally, insufficient carbs can impair exercise performance, leading to less muscle stimulation and reduced overall calorie expenditure. The key is not avoidance, but strategic use, knowing when and how much to eat to support energy, muscle function, and hormonal balance. Another frequent mistake is not paying attention to the type of carbs consumed. Not all carbohydrates have the same effect on blood sugar and insulin. Refined carbs, sugars, and processed foods spike insulin rapidly and can lead to fat storage, while complex carbs with fiber release glucose more slowly, producing smaller insulin responses and supporting satiety. Vegetables, sweet potatoes, and low glycemic fruits are examples of carbs that can be incorporated strategically without disrupting fat-burning hormones. Pairing carbs with protein and healthy fats further stabilizes blood sugar and extends the fat-burning window, making carbs work as a tool rather than an obstacle. Many people also fail to consider how carbs affect hormone balance. Fat loss is not solely about calories, it's about creating the right hormonal environment. Poor carb choices or timing can suppress leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling the body to burn energy, and elevate insulin at inappropriate times, promoting fat storage. Conversely, strategic carb intake can stimulate leptin, regulate insulin, and support other fat-burning hormones like growth hormone and norepinephrine. By ignoring this principle, individuals often struggle despite eating clean or restricting calories, because hormones, not calories alone, are the true regulators of fat metabolism. Additionally, another mistake is inconsistency. Some people try carb manipulation for a day or two and give up when they don't see immediate results. Fat loss is a process that relies on repeated, consistent patterns that optimize hormone function. Carb timing, quality, and quantity must be applied consistently to produce sustained changes in metabolism and fat utilization. Sporadic carb manipulation may provide short-term energy benefits, but will not create the long-term hormonal environment needed for significant fat loss. Lastly, many overlook the psychological aspect of carb consumption. Completely avoiding carbs or creating overly restrictive rules often leads to cravings, binge eating, and an unhealthy relationship with food. Strategic carb intake allows for flexibility, satisfaction, and adherence, which are essential for long-term success. By avoiding the common mistakes of overconsumption, poor timing, elimination, or reliance on refined carbs, you can harness the full potential of carbohydrates as a tool to support fat loss rather than sabotage it. In conclusion, avoiding common carb mistakes is just as important as knowing when and how to eat them. Overeating at the wrong time, cutting them out too aggressively, choosing refined carbs, ignoring hormonal effects, being inconsistent, and disregarding psychological factors are all pitfalls that can prevent fat loss. By understanding the science behind carb metabolism and strategically implementing high-quality carbs at the right times, you create an environment in which fat can be burned efficiently, energy remains high, and muscle is preserved. This approach is far superior to simple fasting or calorie restriction, as it works with the body's biology rather than against it, providing sustainable and effective fat loss results.